Ladies and gentlemen, today we have the honor of welcoming Shawn Rosen, a Filipino-American filmmaker from the lively city of Las Vegas. His roots in the Philippines and experiences in Las Vegas shape his cinematic journey. Shawn's mission? To share the richness of Filipino culture worldwide through his captivating stories. With each film, he explores deep emotions and big questions about life. Shawn's passion for Filipino mythology shines through, aiming to give it the same recognition as Greek and Roman tales. Join us for an adventure with Shawn Rosen, where every scene is filled with passion, creativity, and profound storytelling. Welcome to VegasVibes Junction, Shawn.
Thank you for having me, Esmeralda.
Well, you have a very inspiring background. You do film. What inspired you to get into it?
It's just one of those things that I've always wanted to do. I've always been a writer. And so for the longest time, I always wanted to figure out a way to get people to actually read my stories. So when the pandemic hit, I actually wrote a book. And I was so proud of myself because it took me like a year and a half to write it. But when I was done, nobody wanted to read it. And I was like, come on, like I spent so much time, I put my heart and soul into this thing. But I hate to say this, but a lot of people don't like reading as much anymore, unless it's a text or it's a Instagram post, you know. So I was like, how am I going to get people to actually read my stories? Because I love telling stories. I love, you know, talking and sharing my experiences. So I figured, well, the most consumable way of people, you know, taking in your stories is through film, moving pictures. And so I was like, well, there's no better time than now when the pandemic hit. And while everybody was learning how to make bread or, you know, like garden and stuff, I wanted to make films. So that's what got me into film. And then I had nobody to be in my films because everybody was indoors. And I had my sister and my niece living with me at the time. And so I was like, hey, look, you guys don't pay rent, so you guys got to help me make this movie. And it was just a joke, but they're like, yeah, heck yeah, there's nothing else to do, you know. And the little girl at the time, she was like 2, and she's driving us nuts. And I was like, all right, we're going to make a story about this little girl, and she's going to pass away. And then my sister was like, what? Yeah, what? Wow, so tragic right off the bat. And I was like, well, no, let's base it off of, you know, the three
Little pigs?
the 3 little pigs, right? No, it was the Ghost of Christmas Past. And so we just came up with this story where, you know, the father has 3 different scenarios, and then he has to figure out a way to save his daughter. And so when we put it together, that was it. Like, I fell in love with it. I really liked being able to see my story come to life right before me. It was like, I don't need to wait until somebody picks up my story. If I just do it myself, I get to get it right away. It's like instant gratification.
That's amazing. So you just started not very long ago.
No, yeah, like 3 years ago.
But then, you talk about your book. What was the book all about? Did you publish it?
No, unfortunately, I got hired to write this book because I've been writing short stories, and then I went to this convention. It's called Level Up one day, and I shared this short story with this guy who owns this company called 90KP or ESC Toys. And he loved the short stories, and he's like, hey, I want you to write a book about these characters. And he has a trading card game, and he wanted to make it more like Yu-Gi-Oh, because Yu-Gi-Oh was like a really cool cartoon, and then they made cards about it. And then Pokemon was a really cool show, and then they made cards about it. So he wanted to put some story to his cards so that people would get into it. And so he hired me to write the book, and so I spent a year writing that book, a year and a half. And it's about a Japanese girl who's impoverished in feudal Japan, and she basically has no way of fulfilling her dream of becoming a famous world-renowned artist. So she goes through this journey where she has to rescue her father from being imprisoned by a landlord who stole him, or like basically kidnapped him and imprisoned him until she can pay back the rent that they owe her for like a year. And she goes on this journey where she meets a magical frog that has teas that give you like a bunch of different types of creativity. And so the whole story is about like her discovering herself, and what art is really means to her. And then yeah, she rescues her dad. So
I mentioned in my description about you that you like writing mythology.
yes, so that's why it worked out very well.
What interested you?
I've always been into Greek and Roman mythology, but I never really knew too much about Filipino mythology, and so I wanted to. It first started when I was making my first horror film. It was called Palisipan, and I knew I wanted to make a horror, but I didn't know what it was going to be about. So I wanted to create some kind of like background to some original mythological creature in Filipino folklore. And I found out that one of the scariest things, to me at least at the time, was the Kumakatuk.
And what is that?
The Kumakatuk is basically the Grim Reaper of Filipino mythology. There's this girl, and she's like guarded by two males, older males, and what they do is they go and knock on different people's doors to let them know that death is coming. And so that's why they call them the Kumakatuk, because that means to knock, basically, in Tagalog. And it originated back in like World War II, when people were still recovering from the Japanese occupation. And that's as much as I found out about the Kumakatuk. There's nothing else. There's like maybe like a small wiki page on the Kumakatuk, but there's like no background on it. So we don't even really know when it originated. And I was like, well, why don't I go ahead and create some background? And so I started coming up with the concept of this, how the girl came to be, and how she's actually a mother who had lost her child previously. And so Palisipan actually connected with the first film that I made about a father who also lost his daughter. It turns out that the father and the mother are both, that's the same parents that lost the same daughter. And then she became the Kumakatuk that way. And so it just became an ongoing mythological concept that I just want to throw behind the Kumakatuk. So there's some background.
How many films have you done so far? It seems like you've done a lot already.
Yeah, I think I've made over 20 short films, but 4 of them have been serious short films where I went through a casting process. I went and found locations. I had to hire like makeup artists and stuff. Maybe about 4 of those, 4 series.
Everything here in Las Vegas.
Yeah, everything's local.
Wow, amazing. Well, growing up in Las Vegas and being of Filipino descent, how have your cultural roots influenced your storytelling and filmmaking style?
Well, so when I started looking into Filipino mythology, I realized that there's like maybe over 200 different gods. And I remember my mom always talking about like some of these and growing up, and I always wanted to find out more about it. So being from, well, I was actually born in the Philippines, and I have little to no memory of it, and I wanted to reconnect with my roots. So I
That's
started,
your way.
yeah, as my way of to like, hey, look, I'm
Feeling
still
close to
Filipino.
home.
Yeah, I'm still close, And so, growing up with a Filipino mother, she's always been, she's shown me the way on what it's like to be kind and to be giving. And I feel like a lot of that transcends into my films because it's about, being.
There are moral lessons that you can pick up from your film.
That you get from, like Filipino culture. So like Pakikisama, for example. You always, if you help out a Filipino, they always give back like tenfold. You basically earn their loyalty by helping them out. And a lot of that is portrayed in my films because
why is it important to you?
it's important to me because when any filmmaker makes a film, you can't do it alone. You have a whole team behind you, and
It takes a village.
It takes a village to raise this child, and you gotta take care of these guys that are really putting out blood, sweat, and tears to make your vision a reality.
What were the challenges that you had to face? And how were you able to overcome them?
One of the biggest things I had to face was, I grew up with a single Filipino mom, and I had 4 brothers, and I have a sister, but she didn't come along until after I moved out from my mom's house when I was 18. And I knew I had my sister, but my dad decided to go ahead and send her to the U.S. now that I was on my own. So one of the biggest challenges was becoming more of a father figure for my younger brothers, because our dad was an absentee father. He was never around, but we kept an online presence with each other. We would talk over Yahoo Messenger when it was a thing, and because we didn't really have any kind of family support or anything here, we grew up in the ghetto. We used to live in, there's this place called Perry Street, right next to Sam's Town. They're luxury condos now, but we used to live in Section 8 housing over there, and the place started deteriorating, and it basically collapsed, so they had to move everybody out. And then we were relocated to a place on Las Vegas Boulevard and Cheyenne called Cheyenne Point. And basically it's like where all the tire shops are. And so that's kind of like where I learned Spanish, because it's predominantly Hispanic community. And it's just really hard to do all of that when you're only 14, and then you're trying to make ends meet, and you can't even work because you're not old enough to work, and there's no child labor here. So I think that's one of the most difficult things. And then being able to break out of that, hey, you don't have to only just buy rice, hot dogs, and tomato sauce to get by. Now that you have your own career, you can start buying real food, and you don't have to go through the winters without the heater, and you can take warm showers. Those are things that I'm so used to doing. I can take a 30-degree shower and be okay with it, because there were so many times when our gas shut off and our electricity shut off, and we had to do our homework in candlelight, and we were living off of just literally rice and hot dogs. And
but actually those hardships can build your character, and you will discover your strength.
I think so, yeah. It helped.
And look at where you are now. You're inspiring hearts through your films.
I hope so.
So what's the ambition now? What do you aspire to become?
I want to be the most prominent Filipino filmmaker ever. I want to be like the Steven Spielberg of Filipino films. And it's going to happen, because that's all I do is I eat, breathe, sleep movies. I'm always thinking about the next script. I'm always thinking about who I'm going to cast. I'm always thinking about the locations. I travel a lot just so I can figure out where I'm going to have which scene where. And it's become kind of like a hobby now. Not filmmaking, but just the parts of filmmaking, putting the pieces together. It's fun.
Your life revolves around it.
Yeah, that's what I want. And usually whenever I put my mind to something, it happens. It has not ever happened once. I lied. Sorry. There's one time I wanted to do something, and I put my heart and soul into it, and it didn't happen. And that was when I joined the Army. And
thank you for your service.
Well, thank you for your support. And I wanted to become an officer. And I went to officer candidate school, and I was going through the training, and I was 3 weeks away from graduating. I actually never shared this in an interview before, but we were in a leadership exercise where everyone has to take turns being a squad leader, and I was a squad leader at the time, where I had to take responsibility of this whole squad, and somebody lost their night vision goggles, and I thought, well, because I'm the squad leader, it's my responsibility. So when they asked, hey, who lost the night vision goggles, I said I did.
I took the fall for him.
I took the fall because the guy that lost them had a family at home, and he didn't want to get kicked out, because then he wouldn't be able to provide for his family.
Wait, the consequence would be
you get kicked out, yeah, because they have an honor code, and you can't break. One of the honor code systems is that you can't ever lie, and so I lied about losing these night vision goggles, and they kicked me out for that. They kicked me out of the Army.
Did you ever regret that?
A part of me regrets it, because things could have been a little bit smoother if I was an officer in the Army. Because when you're enlisted, it's difficult. You always have a lot of bad leaders. But a part of me is glad that it happened, because at the time, I was learning about myself. I was learning how to be on my own. I was living, from apartment to apartment, and I finally was able to be in like a solid organization that had structure. So it taught me a lot of structure. And being kicked out just meant that of officer school, I was able to go back to the Army, but I think I learned how to rise higher than I ever had before, because that was the first time I ever felt like I failed something.
It's commendable of you to take a fall for someone just because you put them first, before you.
Yeah, I thought that was my job.
Not everyone would do that.
I thought that was our responsibility. And it's like, but...
It's very selfless of you.
Oh, thank you.
Well, no, he should thank you. Did the guy even know that you did that for him?
He did, and he was like, man, I really appreciate it, and I'm glad that he was able to, stay in, but I hit him up maybe a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, and I wanted to see how he was doing. He served his time, and now he's on his way out, and he was like really happy about it. And I was just like, you know what? That's good. The sacrifice was well worth it.
Yes, that was very admirable of you to do. Well, I'm glad he came out okay after that.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I don't know what he's doing now.
Well, is there anything that you would like to pursue outside what you are currently doing now?
Yeah, one of my bucket list items, I don't really have a bucket list because whatever I want to do, I just do it.
You're very spontaneous.
I just go get it, yeah. I always wanted to make music, and that was...
As a composer, songwriter, singer?
DJ. Yeah.
Interesting.
Like make electronic music, because that's like my favorite type of music. I love like fast beats and stuff. And so I tried to get into Ableton, which is like the most popular program for music making. And I was pressing the buttons and trying to make beats and stuff. And it was just like, man, like my heart wasn't really in it. But that was like 3 years ago during the pandemic. And it was before I got into filmmaking. I was trying a bunch of different things. And I just didn't feel like I was willing to put in the time at the time. But I feel like later on, I'm going to eventually get pushed back into it, because it's still in my head, back of my head, like, oh man, if I can make up my own music, I can just throw that into my films, and I won't have to get like the license for any of the songs. And so that's one thing I want to do. And then the second thing would be like, I scuba dive for as a hobby. And so every time I travel to another country during the summer, I get a different license. So right now I have an advanced open water diving license. I'm hoping that I can become a professional diver, so that if I'm not making films in the meantime, I can go ahead and show others how to dive, and that can be like my side gig.
Amazing. I love that. A filmmaker and a scuba diver. At night? No.
At night? Yeah, let's go.
I've never done that before, but that would probably, I don't know, it scares me. I love snorkeling.
Oh,
but
if you love snorkeling, you're going to love diving, Esmeralda.
Yes. Yeah, when I went to Boracay, that was so much fun. But of course, you cannot do scuba diving at night. You won't be able to see anything, or I don't know.
No, you can.
You can, right?
Mm-hmm. But that requires a different license.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Collaboration is key in film industry. Can you share a memorable collaboration experience that significantly enhanced one of your projects? You have mentioned your sister and your niece. Do you collaborate
Yeah, I
with
love
other filmmakers?
if people find me worthy to collaborate with them, because I don't really have a name.
You are building. You have to start from somewhere.
Yeah.
And like you said, you want to be the next Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, that was the first person that came in my head, but he has his path, and I don't, it's like anybody like Jarek Padsing. They don't want to be like the next Manny Pacquiao. They have their own path. I just would like to make films just as timeless as Steven Spielberg's
Yeah,
films.
of course you want to be a star in your own right.
I don't care about being a star. I just want people to watch my movies.
Ah, okay. Balancing personal creativity with industry demands can be challenging. How do you stay true to your artistic vision while navigating the filmmaking landscape?
Oh, dang, that's crazy. That's a hard one. I think the way that I've been able to stay on point with, I guess, my artistic endeavor, which is filmmaking, is I'm a big-time minimalist. So I like to only like carry what I need, and when I travel, people get on me on this for this all the time. I travel very lightly, so when I go to the Philippines, I just take a backpack, and I only carry what I need. Everything's tested for necessity. Oh, I know I'm going to use this. I know I'm going to use this. I know I'm going to use this. So I take that mindset and I do that with film. This is what I want to do. Is it worth spending the rest of my life chasing this? And the pandemic helped me realize, yes, it is. Even if I don't ever become anybody in this field, I'm happy doing it. And at the end of the day, it's me who feels my own happiness, and I feel really good doing it. And so I'm able to still concentrate on pursuing my dreams as a filmmaker, knowing that that's the one thing that I really want. I mean, I want a lot of things, but I really want to focus on that. My main focus is to be a professional filmmaker. So every time I feel like, man, like I get sidetracked, because on the side I am a teacher. You
are a teacher. What do you teach?
I teach students with autism, and I teach it at high school level, and they have their own quirks and their own stuff, and it's like they take a lot of time. And so I'm like, how am I going to make films if I'm also teaching? And I realized, well, the teaching kind of, sorry for any of my students to hear this, but the teaching kind of like feeds into my filmmaking. Like they give me experiences that turn into stories and inspirations. And sometimes, eventually, I hope I get to the point where, okay, it just helps develop me into the director that I'd like to be as a full-time filmmaker eventually.
What gave you the heart to do that? What was the catalyst that brought you to that way of living?
I don't like having a boss. So I became a substitute teacher because it's one of the best hush-hush gigs ever. Not a lot of people know that when you're a sub, it's really, really, really hard to replace you, especially in Las Vegas, where a majority of our teachers are now like from the Philippines, which is great, J1. But as a sub, I don't have to be I don't have to answer to anybody other than like my secretary of that school. And so every job that I got after that basically didn't require a job, like a boss. I was able to do things on my own. I became an Uber driver, Lyft driver, and I fell in love with substituting one day when I went into an autism class, and I realized that these kids actually need teachers more than the regular student. And when I was able to like teach some of them how to tell time or do basic arithmetic, they just like their whole like presence glowed, and it just made me feel like that was like one of the most priceless feelings I could ever get.
Wow, yeah, it's very rewarding.
And so it just turned into teaching.
Well, I admire you more for discovering that you do that.
Oh, thank you.
For all these children.
I appreciate it.
It's very commendable. Well, if there's anything that you would like to convey to all our viewers, words of wisdom, pieces of advice, what would it be? Whether you want to be a teacher or for special children or a filmmaker, what advice would you give to them?
I could say the most common thing, and that would be like, know what you want in life. But I think that, that's kind of like common wisdom. Everyone should know what they want, but it's so hard to figure out what you want because there's so many things, and there's so many things that kind of eat away at your time that prevent you from knowing what you want, like social media. But I think the best piece of advice I can give in general is to just be organized, because if you're organized, you can see things a lot clearer than if you weren't organized, because then everything's all over the place, and then you have to pick and choose. If you're organized, you kind of have everything lined up, and then you can just see things from a broader perspective. And I feel like that's what helped me figure out my ambitions. Like I want to be a filmmaker, and I wanted to be a teacher, and I want to be a diver, because I just started looking at the things that I want, and then I just figure out, a trajectory on how to get to that point. And doing those things requires organization. And so I always tell like my brothers and my sister, like the key to success is to be organized. That's like the biggest building block, and then everything else kind of just falls into place. I don't know.
That's wonderful. What makes you happy, Shawn?
Doing these things. No, I'm just kidding.
Particularly filmmaking.
Filmmaking makes me happy. I feel like the most alive when I'm on set and we're like making magic. to me. It's magic. But water, I love water. I just wish we had something more than just Boulder Beach here in Las Vegas. But that makes me happy. And then just sitting down and like talking to the different people in the world and just learning about their experiences, because not only does it like inspire my films, but it also, I feel like it helps bring me to like enlightenment.
And lastly, if you had one superpower, what would it be and why?
Superpower? Oh, this is gonna be weird, but the ability to just think of a concept and then it immediately becomes a film.
In a snap.
In a snap, like that.
Thank you so much, Shawn. Please invite everyone. Where can people find you and all the incredible things that you do?
You can find me at Shawn M. Rosen on Instagram and Plethora Productions on YouTube. You'll know it's the right Plethora Productions because it'll have a picture of my cute little Maltipoo on the front of it. She is my mascot doggy. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I wish you good luck on your current and future endeavors.
Oh, thank you, Esmeralda. Thank you for
God
having
bless.
me.
My pleasure. Thank you for joining us today as we explore the world of filmmaking with Shawn Rosen. His love for storytelling, inspired by Filipino culture, shows us how movies can connect people and spark imagination. That Shawn's passion encouraged us to appreciate different stories, honor our roots, and come together as a global family through the magic of film. As we say goodbye, may your adventures be full of wonder, discovery, and the endless possibilities of the silver screen. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep spreading the joy of storytelling. Blessings to you all. God bless.
Just one look into your eyes, there I see who you are to me. Your love so special, your kiss so sweet, only your smile can complete. Now that I stand next to you, glad I was there to reassure you. The sadness in your eyes, I'll replace with eternal smiles. So now I can't resist holding on to commit, inspired to love you and keep you smile until the end.